Hello. It says we're live, but I don't believe it because I have to see it on my tablet first, and it still says it's waiting. So I see Daniel. Hey, Daniel. I see Kathy. Can you see any comments yet?
No, no.
So I wonder if it's because you have your phone this way and not on landscape.
Um, I don't know, but I tried. Well, hello everybody that's there. This is my first time doing a live anything. Well, that's not true. In LA, I used to be sometimes featured on the news. I don't know why, but anyhow,
Okay.
but I'm more nervous now though. And
Oh, don't be. We're
yeah,
just talking to friends, child.
I know, I know, I know.
So
Uh,
I tried to do it where he could see that, but I wonder if it's because you have sorry guys, you have it on landscape or on portraits of landscape.
Portraits and landscape.
So what I'm in now is landscape. What you're in is portrait. But
Oh,
don't worry about it. I've let me try this again. I have a tick where it says guests can see comments and posts. So
yeah, but see, for some reason, I'm not seeing anything right here. No, I see my picture on here, and you could, who's ever watching, can tell that I'm very new at this. But anyhow, it says you're in the show. Everyone can see and hear you. But then, oh, unless if I have to hit chat, but then I'll lose the screen though.
well, hit chat, see what it does.
Yeah, just let's see what that does here. See, then I lose. I can't see anyone.
You can't see me.
No.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I believe it's because you're on land on portrait. That's fine.
No. Well, what I was going to say is that with my phone, my new stand here that I spent a whole $7 on, uh, doesn't. The phone is positioned
Right.
vertically, and I can't. There's no way to hold this phone horizontally on this
Oh,
stand.
okay. Okay. No, that's okay. You're fine. I can read you the questions because we're gonna get into it. And
Yeah.
I say hi to Sandy. Hey, Sandy. Uh,
Hello,
Monica.
Sandy.
There's Monica.
Oh, Monica. Hello. Hello.
Kathy. We still get. She said the quality's great. So she said you look good.
Oh,
So
I do. Oh,
yeah, of course you
oh,
do.
thank you, Kathy. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Daniel. I can't
Uh,
see you guys, but this is weird to be on this other end of the phone
I
of the
know.
camera.
So, first of all, how is everyone today? Just want to throw it out there real quick. I was telling John Robert had a tough week, cracked a rib, was in emergency room. I'm fine now, y'all. Fine, it's all good. And I have to give a big thanks to Daniel at Tacky is Me and Beth, who I like to now call Dr. Beth at Carolina Princess Sweet Treats and Pretties, because they both got me through a really tough time.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Dave, because Dave drove me to the emergency room. So
Well, that's really good. Yeah.
yeah, he has to do his on the PC. The phone drives him nuts. But so yeah, Daniel says he does his on his PC. I don't do mine on my PC, I do mine on my phone.
Well, see, well, with me, I don't own a PC.
Right.
I have an iPad that's 14 years old. I'm back in the Stone Age.
Wonder if it would work. Well, you can probably see the YouTube chat if you put yeah.
Hmm. I don't know.
I, uh, Daniel says I always crack him up. You funny.
Oh yeah.
Hi, hello, Gosha. Hello, hello.
Oh, hello, Gosha.
And I only cracked it because I was coughing so much. Well, backstory: I had a pain for about a week. Went to the doctor. Then they told me that I may have pleurisy. And like I said to John Robert, what in the 1700s is going on here? Pleurisy. I was like, "Are you?" I was like, and I said, "Is that the new TikTok trend?" Because I don't know nothing about a pleurisy. So I had to go get an X-ray. Well, I got the X-ray, and the evening after I got the X-ray, I coughed real hard because I'm still coughing, yeah. And I heard a pop. But I didn't hear a pop. I felt the pop, and I was like, "Oh, that's not normal."
Mm.
And then Dave took me to the emergency room, and that was the and then and fine. It's gonna take about 6 weeks to heal. I'm fine. Look, I'm just sitting here chilling, y'all. So I'm good. Yeah, the pain is a lot better than it had been. It was definitely better than it was the night it happened. But I'm good. How are you, John Robert? How are you doing?
Well, I guess I'm okay. I mean, I'm just trying to get myself sorted out with this phone technology situation. I mean, I just go about my business, working around the house, playing with my cat, watching old movies,
Love
living
it.
my life in my own fantasy world, and that's it. And so, and then join in on YouTube shows and all that. But trying it from this angle, and thank you, Dolores, for inviting me, by the way. Uh,
Of
and
course.
for everyone out there, I can't see you or your comments, but she has now de-virginized me.
I,
So
I like being the first.
yes, you are, girl. Yes, you're my first girl. I mean, for that. I mean, for the show. And so, well, actually, yeah. But and so I thank you for that. It's exciting. I was just a little frustrated because I got a new iPhone after 7.5 years. I'm on this old iPhone 10 right now, but I actually got a new iPhone 15, only to realize that after a week of trying to transfer everything over with being on the phone with Spectrum about cumulatively 4 hours to try to transfer all the data from that one phone from the 10 to the 15, it just still hasn't worked. So then I tried to sign up on the Instagram, and then it wanted me to start up a whole new account. I'm like, no, I don't have time for this. No, no. So I just got the 10 phone here back and then put it up, and that's it. So
Well, thank you. Monica said I look like nothing had happened. Well, from the neck up, nope.
yeah, no.
Thank you. And Daniel says, I love my fantasy world. The first of many, John Robert. Everyone will be wanting you now. Yes, you're going to be in demand, darling.
Oh, me. Oh, no, no,
I
no.
didn't know me. Yeah.
Well. Oh, fancy that.
I, I think you're great.
Oh,
So
thank you.
there's a reason why I asked John Robert. One, because I like him, and two, because he's quite knowledgeable in certain things. Now, what we're going to talk about today is, let me start off with this. I'm going to start off with this person. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this person I'm about to tell you about right now. His name was Lancelot Brown. He was born in 1715 in the UK. He's English, but Lancelot Brown was known as Capability Brown. And Capability Brown was an English gardener extraordinaire and a landscape architect who remains one of the most famous landscape architects in the English history, in English landscape garden style. When you think of an English stately home and you see those gardens with the shrubbery and the flowers, that was most likely Capability Brown. And he is remembered as the last of the great English 18th century artists to be accorded his due, and also as England's greatest gardener. Having said that, I feel like John Robert is Indiana's Capability Brown.
Oh, wow. My gosh, Dolores, that's so nice of you. I don't know about that.
So,
I mean, I just came out here 6.5 years ago, and I lived my whole life in California, so I'm relearning everything out here. So, but it's fun. It's a challenge, but it's fun.
but it's, I mean, and if you go on his Instagram, you see pictures. If you go back, scroll and stalk John Robert like I did, you can see some of his work. And we were just, and he always talks about it in the chat. And I'm like, you seem like you're an avid gardener. So we're going to talk today about, and these are ornamental gardens I'm referring to. I'm not referring to, um, uh, growing your plants and eating them. That's fine too. But today it's all ornamental. So how is this vintage? Well, first of all, me and John Robert, we vintage. So there you go. But we are going to talk about using those type of things in your garden, vintage, and about vintage flowers and all your gardening questions. If you have any gardening questions, put them in the chat for John Robert. He will try to, hey, nice to see you. Oh, you love gardening. See, you came to the right place. Uh, JGB Denim. I know your first name, but I can't remember it. Please tell me if it's okay to call you by first name. So yes, we're talking about gardening. If you have gardening questions, Georgia, is it Georgia? Because I just saw Kat put it. Hello, Georgia. Thank you for coming. And hey, Patrick, Trusty Hester Mercantile
Oh,
is here.
Patrick. Oh, wow. Hello, Patrick. I can't see you, but or comments, but okay. Hello.
So we're going to talk about gardening, and as John Robert is now has been now donned the Capability Brown of Indiana, we're gonna let we're gonna let you have some questions. I have loads of questions because I just so when you so is there a big? Let me ask you the first questions because you just talked about how you moved from California to Indiana.
Yes.
Um, I was going to ask you I know the climate's different, but how different was it? Could you now have to plant new things or could you still plant things that you planted in California?
Well, that's really good question, Dolores. First of all, within California, I lived several different places. The
Oh,
first half of
okay.
my life was San Francisco. Then I lived in Los Angeles and Southern California, Orange County, and the Central Valley. Well, there are different planting zones. And within each zone of planting has a varying degree of temperature that the plants can survive and sustain themselves in,
Mhm.
where other plants cannot. So it depends, on the planting zone. So that's number one. So where I come from, the planting zone is registered as a typically zone 9 or 10.
Okay, so quite up there.
Right. And as opposed to here now, I'm looking at zone 6. And not only zone 6, but sometimes because of the fluctuating temperatures and being severe at times, that I
Mhm.
actually think of it as zone 5 to stay in the safety zone. Only
Right.
because sometimes we can get like a mild onset to winter, or other times it comes in with a bang, like December 2022, for example. The first day of winter, which I believe was, I don't know, uh, December 20, December 20th, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it
Mhm.
was like for 4 days. And it was like, my gosh, what happened? I mean, it went down to almost negative 20 degrees here. That's
Wow.
highly unusual. And keep in mind, a couple of days prior to that, we were in the 70s. So that's when plants really have a tough time. So to kind of absorb those differences, I like to go ahead and think, well, because the climate is more severe here, I
Yeah.
want to go ahead and think, well, I'm just going to go ahead and notch it down to zone 5 just to cover myself so I don't lose plants, which
Right.
means lose money. So,
So Daniel pointed out, and I think he mentioned this to me that his zone or our zone was just upped. So I guess the number has now changed from where he would normally be. Like you have these zones, and he said where he's at in Illinois that their zone has just been upped, meaning that I guess it's now hotter or
well, it I would take that to mean that the severity of cold temperatures are not the duration that they once were, and that
oh
not as strong as they once were. Because I know a lot of locals around my area here are telling me, "Oh, John, the last 20 years we haven't had a
right.
real winter here in southern Indiana," and I'm like, "We haven't," and
Well, for you, yeah, it probably is like a real winter, but like for
oh
them, it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. No, you think? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, absolutely. But so that's the biggest difference. And with that, I see Daniel's. I missed what he said there, but
oh,
um,
can you see it?
used to be your last frost date was May 15th. Now it's April 15th to April 30th. Interestingly, before I go on, that I grow a lot of roses, or I did, especially in California. I had 160 plants that I planted from bare root in my colonial house over there in Central California, and I took care of all of them. Now I have 20 bush roses, which are a lot easier to take care of because
Okay.
of the climate and all that. But just what Daniel said there is that here I noticed that my roses were breaking bud. So there's basal breaks on the canes of the rose bushes. And I'm like, what is going on out there? So I go out there and I look and I see leaves starting to spread out and everything. And oh, Kathy Wiseman, yours is zone 5. So you are zone 5. Okay, so you're a little bit colder than I am.
And Georgia is 7 or 8.
7 to 8. Same. And so um so they started breaking, buds and all that. And I thought, well, geez, I'm so tempted to cut out the roses out there. And I thought, well, should I, shouldn't I? So I waited about 2 weeks or so before I did that. And then about 2 days ago, I said, oh no, I mean, they're fully leafing out. I've got to get these pruned back, do a hard prune. Hello,
Hi, hi,
Deborah.
Deborah.
Yeah. And
Hi, Heather Elizabeth,
yes,
for
hello.
joining us.
Yeah.
We're talking
And,
garden. So
right.
yeah, if you do have questions, please put them in the comments. So do you find it easier in Indiana or harder or like just different?
Well, really, it's just different because
Okay.
once you know your planting zone, you go with it. So, for
Mhm.
example, when I first moved here, I did not know what was in the ground, what wasn't in the ground. I moved in here in 17. And so, spring of 18, summer of 18, I said, let's just see what comes up, what is already here,
Yeah.
then get to learn what I want to do, and then start to kind of feel my way around and see what kind of design I want to do or see what kind of look I want to achieve. And so that's how I started here. I just kind of thought, well, do I want to do like perennial plants, which are ones that come back every year? Maybe just some annuals to begin with, or evergreens and all
Mm.
that, foundation plants. Hello, Heidi. Hello, hello. Excuse me. The
So
higher the number, the colder.
is
Uh,
that what she's asking you? Is it the higher the number, the colder, or is it the higher the number, the
No,
warmer?
no, 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 no. Say like zone 10, it doesn't get that cold at all in zone
Okay.
10. So like me, I'm zone 6. See, I was zone 10
Yeah.
in zone 9, and that was a lot warmer in Southern California and all that. Now, but see, it's hard for me to read the little tiny print. I just,
Sorry. Take your
or
time.
no, that's, but this year, it's a Southern Ohio got worse weather than we did in the North. You see? So that's, there you go. Kathy makes a great point. This is exactly my point. So to get around, hello, Amanda. Um, so to get to my point is that in order to safeguard yourself, it's always, I feel, safer to just drop down, especially where we're at in the Midwest, upper
Yeah.
Midwest, to just drop down a zone number. So then that way you're kind of more covered and you're not as apt to lose so many plants. So that's how I do that.
So uh, Heidi says it rarely freezes there anymore, which is shocking
Yeah.
because it's in Belgium. Heather Elizabeth is in zone 5, she thinks.
Uh-huh.
Daniel, I wish I could garden. Oh, the effing groundhogs.
Oh no. So now here I don't have groundhogs or anything. And it seems like Daniel and I were kind of like on the same wavelength regarding weather. When he gets a certain weather pattern, I kind of get the same kind of weather. Um, Butterfly nurse thrift. Hello. I don't know you, I don't think, but that's all right. Hello to you. And what does it say here? Hello. I'm all about perennials. Yes. Love seeing my plants reappear. So do I.
Yes, we're gonna get it
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
So when you're planting, do you okay? So do you prefer seeds, small plants, bulbs, and when do you start preparing your ground for planting? So the first question is, what do you prefer? Do you prefer like already grown plants or bulbs or seeds, or how do you like to do it?
I do all of the above.
Okay.
Because it's all about texture. It's all about what the plant does, where it's located, what is the look, the staggered look that you want to have. And so you have foundation plants, you have evergreen plants to create that foundation. Then you have perennials that come back every year, of course, at least we hope so. And then you can do annuals. And some of my annuals, like I do zinnias, I'll do those from seeds. This year,
Okay.
I bought them again for the 4th year in a row. I'll plant those. And unlike a lot of people in the Midwest or in colder climates, what they do is they plant their seeds, say, in a sunny window in a little peat moss box or something,
Yeah.
to start their seed. I don't bother with that. I wait to make sure that we're past the last day of frost. And once I do that, then I
Okay.
put the seeds in a planter box and water them, keep them watered. Seeds you have to keep watered. That,
Right.
and then I do that, and then I go around and I figure out, well, how are my perennials doing? I take in account, well, what is their ultimate size going to be? How is that going to fit in with everything else in the garden?
Mhm.
So to answer your question again, I'd say that I just literally find that I have to do all of the above. It's just like eating a meal. You have your starch, your protein, your vegetables and all that. Well, same thing with the garden. and I'm not talking that I grow food. I'm not about to go outside and dig up lunch, because the squirrels and
Taking
the
out
birds.
lunch.
Yeah. No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to the grocery store for that only because I don't have the patience for that, because I'll see all the, rodents and all that go along and eat everything. And I
Yeah,
can't do that. I'd like to, but I just can't right now. So,
it's a lot.
but everything, now Daniel says everything seems to be starting out early this year. Absolutely. My lilac bush has leaves coming out already. See, this is a thing. That's exactly right. And it's not just here or in
Right.
Illinois
It's
or in
here.
Ohio. It's the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, everything is just so different. I mean, and that's not to say that that hasn't happened before in the history of the planet. I mean, we're just witnessing one of many cycles right now.
Right. Yeah. We
Yeah.
got snowdrops in December, which is not usually when we get them here. Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See,
So Beth, hi Beth, thanks for coming in.
hello, Beth.
The Belgian hippie says she seeded her sunflowers last summer, but the snails ate them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she had 0 flowers and felt sad. So what would you do about a problem like that?
Okay. So when I have problems with snails and everything out there in the yard, um, gosh, I hate to kind of say this, but I thought it'd be a little more organic, so I put the kettle on.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's all I'm going to say. Okay.
Well, no, but I mean, it's better than using pesticides, I have to admit, or any of those, like some of those slug pellets. I don't use those at all because I have cats, and
Right.
my cat
Right.
goes outside, and I'm like, I don't need you to get that. I don't
Yeah.
need you to be playing with that. So how do you prepare? Like, how do you know, you're going to start preparing your ground?
Okay. Now you brought up an excellent question. And this is where people have a problem with gardening and they don't realize certain things. It's just like anything else. You've got the soil and the earth and the ground, and that is home for the plant. And that is where its breakfast, lunch, and dinner comes from, where
Mhm.
its hydration comes from. You can't dismiss the importance of the soil. And that is why everybody seems to envy my yard, because I really focus on what ground I have and what I'm going to do to amend that soil for the best health possible for my plantings. So for me, now, first of all, before we get into all this, you have to kind of know the general condition of your soil. Okay, by that I mean what? You have a pH scale. Is it acidic or is it alkaline? You need to determine where that sits on the pH scale, and you can buy a little tester at
Yeah.
or wherever you want to buy,
Mhm.
and test your soil that way. And then you want to know, is your soil clay soil, which is so vastly throughout the Midwest here. I mean, clay soil is really just all over the place, and that's what I have.
Called clay cross. So yeah.
Yeah, right. And what does clay soil mean? Well, it really compacts, and it doesn't aerate and all that, and it's hard for the roots to really get through and all that. So with that in mind, you think to yourself, well, what will help break that up? You can use things like gypsum, and what I use is that, but especially simply compost and manure, cow
Right.
manure, chicken manure. Mix all that in. I mix in peat moss. I
Okay,
also hello, yes, Donna. I mix in peat moss. I mix in the manure, compost. Then I'll put in a little sprinkling of Epsom salt for magnesium.
okay.
I'll go to the feed store and get a big bag of alfalfa pellets to put into the hole, and the dirt that's going to backfill the hole. I mix all that up. I put in bone meal because I need
Yeah.
phosphorus to
Mhm.
go ahead and turn in the dirt and to be sitting there for the roots to better develop. Now, a lot of people use different things. There's, different brands and different companies, and there's a product called Biotone that I'm going to start using. So then that way I don't have to go through all these individual packages that I've been
Yeah.
doing lately, But the main thing is to make the soil nutrient rich. And I've found by using alfalfa pellets, it's not just so much for the slow release of nitrogen, but it's also advantageous to the soil to get it to produce worms, earthworms, other beneficial bacteria,
Mhm.
and microorganisms. All these things is what makes a big difference in the soil. And that's where the health of the plant comes from. Because, like I say again, if you don't have that, then, and that's not to say that, oh, you go plant a plant on the ground. Oh, I just planted some plants on the ground and they just grew like crazy and there was no problem with them. Well, again, how was that soil worked prior to you planting something? Was that prior to you living there, or that house being built? Was it farmland? There's all
Right.
these different variables. I mean, really, there is. And there's a lot of plants out there that just simply don't care about
Right.
what the soil conditions are, moisture conditions, and all that. So there's all that too. So there's a lot to it. Let's see. Daniel says, John Robert, I'm coming over to see your garden when it is blooming season. Oh, you do that. You come on over, Daniel. Yes. I'll put you in the shed if you want to stay overnight. No, I'm just kidding.
So Georgia says have horses and buy alfalfa pellets all winter. So
I'll say, yeah, yeah. But if you have alfalfa pellets, use those in the yard. They're great to have. Yes.
so basically you start off to see whether your soil is acidic or alkaline, and then whatever it is, then from there you take it. You can take it.
Well, you definitely want to do that, and like I said, exactly, that you want to check the pH level of that, because different plants require different pH levels. Now, if you're talking about things like rhododendrons, as most of us know, camellias, azaleas, even hydrangeas, things like that are going to require more of an acidic environment.
Yeah.
Roses like a slightly acidic, environment, but you don't have to go overboard with that
I
either.
was going to ask you that because I've bought patio roses and I'm never successful with them.
Patio roses. Well, uh, lighting conditions is something that's okay. That's another thing we need to talk about. Lighting conditions are extremely crucial because you have to this is why I go outside like a fanatic, not, but I go take pictures at different times of the day to remind myself. And I look on my photos and it tells me, oh, look, there's light over there. It's dappled shade. Now it's full sun and all that. What time does the photo say? What time does the photo say there? So get a general documented idea of exactly what I'm getting as far as sunlight and what I'm not getting and where I'm getting. And so based on that, then I make further choices as to the plants I'm going to purchase and put in the yard. And also thinking, what do I want the outcome to be? When I go into any of this, I see in my mind the finished product.
Right.
That's the key. You just don't go arbitrarily throwing, oh, well, there's a hole, I'll throw in a plant here, all that, with no regard to how it will develop and how the plant will grow and all that. That's the other thing. People overpass their plants,
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
and they put things way too close to the foundation. You've got to have room to get around, to work the soil, to prune the plant, to put your mulch down and all that kind of stuff, and to add your nutrients and everything else. And plants need air circulation. They just do. That's not just for roses. I mean, that's for most all plants.
So if it's a patio rose and I have it in a container, it does great the first year. The second year, not so much. So do I know I need to cut off the dead wood off of it, like the scraggly bits?
Right.
Should
Right.
should I change the soil out?
No. Now listen. And now I got to tell you this. Through my many years of experience, and I started this around the age of 8. No kidding. And I'm 62 now. So anyhow, so hi everyone, New England Thrifter. Hi everyone, Dolores, driving and listening. Okay. Now pay attention to the road. But anyhow, so what I was going to say is that you have to think of course, like I said, the lighting and all that. But regarding your patio roses, and this is one, getting back to what I was going to say here, is that container gardening versus in ground. I have never been a fan of container gardening, and I'll tell you why. I used to think I was years ago, because why? I can control the weeds, I can move the plant around. Oh, it'll be easier somehow. No, because in container gardening, the soil is not as tempered, and so it's subjected to more temperature variances. Number one. Number two, nutrients flush right out so quickly. See, whereas regular, no wonder John Robert is so skinny. I'm exhausted just thinking about all that. Oh, see, Daniel, this is how my mind works. This is why I don't sleep at night, or wake up at 3 a.m. and can't get back to
Okay.
bed till 7.
So here's one from
Rose,
Amanda.
uh-huh.
So,
Let's see. Rose bushes show up every uh, issue with your ground and bug issues and viruses and funguses. That's why they put the text is so small I can barely read it.
that's why they put the end of the rows of grapevines. Disease shows first in the rows before the grapes.
Oh, see that? Yeah.
See, that's cool, Amanda.
Yeah.
And,
Well, and also too, though, but to be fair, there's so many different rose types out there. I mean, and there's so many hybridized roses that are yeah, hello, that are that are more resistant to disease and fungus problems and all that other stuff.
Right.
So not all roses are created equal either.
Right.
I mean,
so I do like a container, and I do like my little roses in a container. So
well, okay. Well, no, but to answer your question though,
Yeah.
that you asked me about an hour ago,
I mean, could I put them in the ground though?
Huh?
Could I put them in the ground, patio roses?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. Now, normally a big box store will say, "Oh, these are patio roses." Well, that doesn't really say much of anything, because, well, here's the reason why I say that is because a lot of times in a colder climate, they'll say that to people that live in a colder climate. They can only grow things during the summertime, and they're grown as annuals.
Yeah.
And see, now, to be fair, I have a sunroom to the back of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I bring, like, for instance, I'm in zone 5-6, and I have geraniums that I've had for 5-6 years now. Nobody else does, but I bring them in, I keep them watered, and so I just go ahead and they're still blooming. And so when spring comes, I bring them right back out again,
Right.
and then out they go. But that would be labeled, just to prove my point here, as a patio plant because of my zone. Now,
Right.
with that being said, do you know what rose it is? Is it a petite knockout rose?
It's a tiny. Okay, so the actual flower itself is tiny.
Okay.
That's all I do.
Well, there are, I don't know, 1.2 million different types of.
But I don't know what to tell you. I threw away the tag.
Yeah. Daniel says Japanese beetles have become a problem around here. Oh, yes, around here too. Yeah. But no, Dolores, you might have to. Okay, you've only had these patio roses for about 2 years?
Yes.
Okay. And you feel that something is not right because you see some dead canes or limbs up there?
Well, I know that they do get the scraggly woody pieces that you have to like trim off because you don't, or so I'm told.
Well, you have, yeah, you should do that. Yes.
Right.
Anything that's,
And they're just not getting as many heads as I'd like them to have.
Oh, okay.
Or blooms.
Right. Well, then, okay. First of all, there's the 3Ds, and none of those 3Ds involve Dolores. No, it's so you have dead, diseased, and damaged.
Okay.
So you look at that, and you take your sterilized pruners. Now, when I first had my friends come over from England, and they looked at my roses, the parent of one of my friends, the father, says, "Oh, John, you need to get a pair of secretaries to do your roses." I'm like, "Why would I need secretaries to do my roses? What does that mean?" And he says, secretaries. And what the heck is a secretary? And I realized, no, he means the pruners, And so now I realize what that means. But
yeah,
you take those and you want to make sure you sterilize them. I use just 91% rubbing alcohol on the blades of my pruners every time I go from one bush to the next bush, because you don't want to crossbreed disease. So that's one thing. So keep that in mind. And what I do is I cut down to the next bud that,
right.
When you're cutting, you look at the stem And I almost was going to bring in a stem to show you that if it's clean, light green on the stem, after you cut it, the one remaining is clean and light green, then it's good. But if it's the pith of inside the cane is not clean and green and all that, but it's a brown center or something, you want to get rid of that and keep on
Okay.
cutting, keep on cutting until you get to the green part.
Okay. That's perfect advice. I mean, I just didn't know, excuse me, if I had to change like the soil, if that mattered. Do I need that? Because sometimes people say put a rusty nail in there, it'll work.
Well, yeah, no, no. Typically, the rusty nails used to be for hydrangeas
Oh,
because
that was okay.
that would make them more blue. Yeah, but that's not for the roses. But the thing is too, you want to, because as I mentioned before, that being in a container, a lot of the nutrients just flush out so quickly. When you have them in the regular soil, things are just more
Right.
set there. So what I'd want you to do is get yourself a good rose fertilizer that is slow time release fertilizer.
Okay.
Put that in there. Trim your bush down, your rose bush, and make sure you do. Make sure you do that, and then you should be good. Then you'll be blooming like crazy.
And also, and I say containers because I mean I have a good sized backyard. I do. And we put flower beds. Well, I say we put flower beds in. I did most of the hard work. That's okay because Dave did the planting, and that's what it's about. It's teamwork, and I mean I had to not jackhammer. What is it called? One of those, a tiller
Oh yes,
or rotavator. We call it rotavator here. I had to rotovate it up, and most of that stuff was what we call hardcore.
right.
You know what hardcore is? It's just where they just the builders just throw crap in there.
Yeah.
That's what so we had to put more soil down, which was fine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people may not have homes that have big gardens, or they're in apartments, or they're in a small space. So they container planting isn't the only way they can do it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
which I mean, I love both. I have two vintage, speaking of vintage, I have two vintage Butler sinks, those old fashioned sinks that I had gotten, and I use those for bulbs, and the bulbs come up beautifully.
Oh no, that's great. Now, see, the only thing I myself have things growing in containers too. Not many of them, but I do, and I have tulip bulbs that are coming up in my cement containers outside.
Yeah.
So yes, container gardening for a lot of people that say that they just have a terrace or something or patio, whatever.
He said you won't be telling now.
Yeah.
He's so
Okay, that's funny.
leave my crack rib alone.
I know. But with the potted plants, so people that need to go that route, that's not a problem. It's just that you've got to keep in mind of a couple of things. That say a plant is labeled for, like for me, zone 6 or zone 5.
Right.
I put it in the ground. That's fine. However, if I put that same zone 5 or 6 plant in a container, leave that container outside, not so good. Now all of a sudden it's not valued at a zone 5, because if it's a plastic container and you have that root ball moist and we get a hard freeze,
Oh yeah.
that's right. Yeah, see, and
Mhm.
people don't. You got to be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
So
You have to be careful when you're you have that kind of money and have it like you don't want to take care of it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So with the container gardening, main thing is don't let them get too dried out is the main thing, and make sure that you follow with a consistent slow release fertilizer that's always.
Okay.
If you do those two things in the proper lighting conditions, I think you're fine.
Okay, cool. Because I do, like I said, but I think they look, because you always see like in magazines and stuff, and like, Better Homes and Gardens or whatever. And you always see like these beautiful, I mean, now those are indoor plants, but even when they see them on the porch, like they have, you're like, I want that. And then, but I have two Korean pines that are in large planters, because if you let them grow, they'll grow to be 60 feet tall.
That's the other thing.
I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, well, right. And that's a good point that you make, because that's something else that people have to realize. Within container planting, when you're constricting the size of the root ball, that is going to have an effect on the overall plant. And that's something else that people need to keep in mind. That does make a big difference. Yeah.
So Amanda says she lived in a caravan all last growing season, and grew tomatoes, leeks, beans, strawberries, chili peppers, carrots, beets, zucchini, herbs. Girl, you go, and cabbage, all raised in beds from Little. So yeah, you can get some good stuff from like Little and Aldi and stuff like that. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And this fool, look at him.
I expect to see some great roses now, Dolores.
Well, I'm going to be passing this information on to Dave. So,
Yeah, there you go. Oh, that's funny.
oh,
Oh,
she had 3 potato sacks, and they did just. See, and that's good. Like when you plant stuff like that, and you can do that.
yeah.
Oh, here we go. My next door neighbor has a redwood. He has to bring in the house for the winter.
I'll see.
Okay. See,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, because it's in a container and that has to be done. Or you'll hear people talk about, say, planting bulbs like over here. This popular is elephant ear plant, and I
yeah,
had
yeah,
that one year, and it grew like monstrously big from one tuber that I had bulb. And after that, I mean, by the end of November, I thought, "Oh, I better get out there." They're telling me I need to dig it up. Where I come from, I didn't have to do that. So I'm
yeah.
out there in my bathrobe and all that. I'm like, my gosh, what the heck is this? Invasion of the body snatchers or something? I'm trying to pull that thing up out of the ground. It was bigger and heavier than I was. And I'm like, how did that happen in one season? And the bulb was about that big. That's it. Like this thing you're telling me about. Does that work like that? No, by the way. No, I
Oh,
don't know what I'm doing. Um, well, I guess my heart's not working.
no,
I don't know.
not working today. Oh, there it goes.
Oh,
Working on
see,
mine.
is mine working? No, yeah.
No, uh-uh.
No.
It worked the other day. Remember, you did it.
Oh, yeah. I guess. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe because my face is behind or something.
So when you're thinking of what you're going to put in your garden, when you're like, okay, I mean, obviously some stuff are perennials and they do come back. Do you, when you think I'm going to plant something new, do you consider, because we consider this, what's good for bees and like maybe wildlife and, you know, things like that.
Um, I I do to a degree. I don't focus on that like some people do
Yeah.
because, and here's why. And I didn't get a chance to see what LaDonna was saying, but that's all
Oh,
right.
here you go. There you go. You can read it. Yeah.
Yep, we had one that would die down every year after a freeze and came back bigger than ever. Amazon jungle. Yeah, see? Yeah, there you go. That's right, LaDonna. Exactly. So, um, yeah, it just depends with all this stuff. But I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Now you asked me a question
About
about
the bees. Do you
right.
plant for like
Okay,
wildlife?
so now I know a lot of people focus on that. I
We
don't
yeah.
as much. Excuse me. I don't as much, but I do have it in my mind as well because I don't want to get stung. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I do. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. No, I'm just kidding. But here's the thing, though. I take into account
Right.
where I live, and we have so much because of the incessant rains. It seems like here, but we have a lot of greenery, a lot of plants, a lot of
Mm.
dandelions. I live near a state park, near
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Yeah.
Clifty Falls State Park, and all that. So I have that all in mind. So I don't feel so compelled to be like, oh, got to boost up the natural population of bees and butterflies because if I don't, who will? That's not the issue right here.
Yeah, we
Right.
do. We
Yeah.
specifically plant like all the plants that we have now, like our what y'all call cowbells, we call heucheras.
Oh, hooker. Yeah. Uh-huh.
They stay in the ground all
Coral
year.
bells. Coral bells. Yeah.
They stay in when they grow, and we bought them specifically because they make these tall stalks. The flowers are like tall stalks, and the bees go mad for them. They love
Yeah.
them. A
Yeah.
lot of our flowers that we buy, like even if it's annuals, will and the perennials, they're for bees. Everything in our garden is, and that's just who we are because we're just like we gotta save the bees, but we buy stuff that not necessarily for bees, but I think a majority of our stuff is. But like and dandelions, like I'll let the grass grow just so there'll be dandelions so the bees can enjoy
Well,
them.
we'll see. And or that's a good point. And my backyard, I have quite a huge backyard. I mean, like,
Yeah,
and the thing is, I purposely set when I do mow the lawn, set it higher, and it doesn't really cut
yeah,
off the bloom. So I have basically a field of dandelions back there, and so, um, And I think it's kind of romantic and kind of pretty looking. I mean, in a way, I feel like I'm in my own little prairie, my little house on the prairie. But it's kind of
Yeah.
nice. You
And I
know?
mean, yeah, I mean, like I enjoy, I mean, planting all that stuff. But I just like, I mean, like I love the bees. We always try to encourage them in our yard, and even
Yeah.
except for when Lola tries to chase them. So now, and speaking of dandelions, this is going to lead to my next question. Y'all
Mhm.
ask questions in the chat if y'all want. I Do you consider stuff like, I mean, dandelions and all those types of things? Are they weeds or are they flowers that just aren't appreciated yet?
Okay. Um, Sometimes I feel like, well, it's funny you say that because I'll find myself going to the market to buy what dandelion tea,
Yeah.
you know, and here I'm trying to kill them in the front yard. So, I mean, how crazy is that? Um, I, so I'm kind of ambivalent about that because I feel that, well, on one hand, I feel like, no, I don't want them here, but I don't mind them over there, you know.
Right.
So that's kind of how I'm. Uh, See, a weed is a plant in the wrong place. Well, see, there you go. Right, right, right. Well, that's exactly right. And some plants that are not considered weeds can be very invasive. That's another thing we
Yes.
didn't
Yes.
talk about.
100%. Yes. 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 Trying to force something to grow. Like, it was a Japanese knotweed. Is that the one that's just like really invasive?
Yeah, that's one of
Yeah.
them. Yeah, yeah, and again, that depends on the area as well, because some plants thrive better in some areas as opposed to others. So
Yeah.
that makes them more invasive than other areas as well. So,
Right.
so you got to keep all that in mind. And so when you
Yeah.
hear someone talk about gardening or how to do something, you've got to factor in all these different variables and what is conducive to and specific to exactly where you are at and your soil condition, your lighting
Correct.
condition. Yeah,
And what's going to survive? Because there's plants I couldn't grow here outside that you can
right.
grow all day long outside over there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some of the plants when we go to this, because we have loads of house plants. Dave's all about the house plants, child,
Oh,
as
yeah.
well as outside plants. And I'll go to the plant store and I'll be like, that grows outside in Texas, but you have to keep it inside because,
All right. No, that's
oh,
so true.
girl, let me
We
tell you,
pulled
guys,
cockroaches in the
they don't like it. He doesn't like it because, especially when it starts to climb up the walls, because it can ruin your brickwork and your stuff. It does. It's really quite aggressive.
It
And
is.
he's
Yeah.
like, I'll have it in a pot, but it best not get outside the pot because I don't want to be pulling it off my walls. Yeah. And it'll grow like that here.
Oh,
Um, so another thing I want to ask you, so as you know, we all here because we love vintage, and this is vintage news hour.
yes,
So I
yeah.
need to ask you, do you put anything like, do you incorporate anything, any vintage things, like maybe like vintage farm implements or vintage wheelbarrows or stuff like that into your garden?
Um, no. And what I do more, I have a bird bath. I have a seahorse bird bath. Wisteria was a nightmare for us in Texas. Yes, for me too, Ladon. In my backyard, I'm about ready to take my chain pull saw and hack that son of a gun down to the ground. And don't think I'm not. I'm going to probably be out there at midnight tonight and hook that electric saw and go all across my fence line. That's an easement behind my fence because they were slapping me in my face every time I go to mow the lawn. But but no, getting back to your point, Dolores. Okay, this is where I come from. I was really impressed upon design, color,
Mhm.
homes, and all that. When I was a little kid, I walked to and from school, and I connected with the elderly people who would be retired at home gardening. I would look in the living room windows and see the furniture and the lamps in the window. I was tickled to death by that, the vision of home and everything being kind of symmetrical and nice and
Mhm.
tidy and all that, and gardening and all that. And I've loved it ever since I can remember. And I used to help my parents garden and all that. So I've always loved that. So with that being said, I imagine myself as if I'm doing my home and the years 1960 to 1965, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And what would have a nice home, say back where I come from in San Francisco, the surrounding area, what would have that looked like back then? But I remember I was there. So, and I kind of use that as my focal point in my mind's eye, and I work off of that. And
Right.
so I don't do too many gardeny, cutesy, tchotchke things and all that. That's not for my kind of style. Now, if you are doing like a cottage garden, if I had an English Tudor house, I would totally be on board and go that direction.
Right.
The colonial house I had
Mm.
back in California, I did a formal garden. It was
See,
very
that's
formal.
like a capability brown type of garden. That, yeah.
You're right, right. See, and so here, um, like for example, I got to say this that when I'm gonna add vintage stuffed groundhog statue to mine now. But anyhow, yeah, that's fun.
You'll make them a
But,
rib hurt.
yeah, so yeah, like I said, I don't have that issue. The only issue I have here with rodents are squirrels, but especially moles, not voles, but
Oh,
moles.
okay.
Oh my gosh, they tear. It's like the movie Tremors all over the place, you
Oh,
know.
you say
And one day I saw kind of like, oh, I thought, what's this little raised bump? So I shoved my trowel in there to open it up to see what's got, and I didn't know what to. And this, and I freaked out. And this mole came up. Oh my god! And whack, and I knocked him unconscious. And then all of a sudden he was out. He was gone. I'm like, oh no! And I felt so repentant. Oh my gosh, it was awful. But I'm thinking, well, why do I feel so bad? I buy pellets to take care of them, but at least that's kind of,
right.
I'm not so engaged.
And it is hard. I like, again, we don't really have that issue. We have
No.
cute dogs coming in our garden, and we have little. We do have moles, but they're not. I've never really had they've been an issue till my cat brought one home.
Yeah.
But other than that, we don't. Fortunately for us, we at least where I live, we don't really have that kind of like those invasive species of animal coming into the garden, coming in like I said, hedgehogs, if they can, they're just cute and they roll around. They do carry fleas though.
Yeah.
But so you have to be careful. But I mean, because when I grew up in Texas, and my father liked to bring home lots of stuff. He like a garage sales and stuff. So a lot of those things would end up as containers for flowers. So that's kind of like you say how you grew up, like I grew up, and I'm kind of repeating what my parents did in a way, in that like, oh, this old wash bucket, that'd be perfect, or this old wheelbarrow, like I have an old mangle out there that just sits out there. It's like an old washing mangle, like you'd mangle your clothes through it to get all the water out. It just sits out there as part of decoration. Like I have these old sinks, and my thing is now to get either a small wagon or a wheelbarrow and just let like the wildflower seeds in there and just see what happens. Do you know what I mean? I just love that. Like, what's gonna come up? But then that's the beauty of it. I can do that. Every garden is a person's personal taste.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes it so fun. It really does. I mean, I just happen to focus on what I want to do, but that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate all
other
the different ones out there. I mean, I have a certain way that I like to do things. In fact, I have to mention, probably last year it was, that I was outside and I remember kids and their families, they do ride their bikes and all that as a family down the street and all that. And I would overhear them say, oh, mommy, daddy, stop, look at this house. This is a pretty house on the street and all that. And I'm like, oh.
It's so nice to hear that.
Yeah, that was so nice. And then another one, a couple of days later, another guy was riding his bike and he said to his wife, different people, said, oh, this is the house that looks like a California house. And I thought, California house? That's funny that they should say that. But it's just kind of coming through without me even realizing the way I did that. Let's see, I'm looking for an old bike to put in my garden as decor, nice and rusty.
Yeah, we have people that do that here, and it looks so good. They have like a basket in the front of it and put flowers in.
Well, yeah, you create like a theme kind of feeling, and it's just kind of like simpler times. It's a way to remind us of a bygone era that, I think a lot of us miss. I know I do, so, and, but yeah, no, it's fun to do that. But no, I just, so like with me for foundation plantings, I was going to mention that I have a lot of junipers, old gold junipers, and I have winter interest, summer interest all through the year that way. But then I'll put perennials in between those, which are Stella Doro Day lilies specifically. Oh. And then the whole walkway edge is in full bloom of all one color to make a large impact. And then I have rhododendrons. I have azaleas. I have all those out here to get some color in the spring. And then a neighbor just knocked on my door the other day, frantically, I might add, and I was sound asleep. And I thought, what the heck is going on? And doorbell's ringing, banging on my glass window and all that. And she's a nice lady, but 3 doors down, moved in, 80 years old. And if you think I'm wired and thin and all that, this one's got me beat. And she is 80 years old. She said, well, I brought over 2 hydrangeas and a shovel. Now, that's an $80 shovel. Don't you dare lose it and all that. But get them in the ground as soon as you can. I said, can I wake up and figure out who you are for, you know? And so then, so I did. And I thought, yes, ma'am, I'll get right to it. And so I planted one of them. Then it started to thunder and lightning. But the thing is, I didn't have anything prepared. But ironically enough, there was one plant I wanted to move out of my shade garden area. And so I worked on doing that. That took me half the afternoon to pull out these long roots and all that. And then I planted it in the perfect spot. Now I've got one more to put in. But my point is that I still think through okay, if I do it here, how is it going to impact surrounding things? In other words, kind of like people in life, when they say, well, you know, here I go off on my own little tangent, when everybody has the attitude, oh, just do whatever you want, whenever you want. Not necessarily, because when you start to impact other people, then it's not just your decision. Now it's involving other people, and now you got to rethink what you're doing, you know. So, but
See, I think here, like in the UK, if you're not quirky, something's wrong with you.
oh well, yeah. See, I would fit in the UK then.
It's very like that here. It's like, you know, and it's always been, from my understanding, because I didn't grow up here. But like, if someone has a rusty bucket in their yard, like, and that's part of their decor, that's fine. Some people may have hedges like this, and very regimented, very little soldiers in a row, and some people just have like wildflowers. But I think when you pass by it all, and regardless of what it is your favorite one, just to see the beauty of each individual, because like we don't have HOA and stuff like that here. Such shit. We don't have HOA. We don't that's not a thing here. So if someone wants to have, but usually in the area I am in, it's all older people, so they take quite a bit of pride in their garden. And there is, even if it's quirky, it's still like nice quirky. You know what I mean? Like it's quite,
Yeah.
So I'm so glad we could go on for hours, John.
Oh yeah, I've got so much. Oh yeah.
We only have an hour, but we go on for ages. We'll have to have you back, because we didn't even get into autumn planting, which is a whole thing. Now we're going to have you back in autumn, because I love the whole autumn plants and what you do. We're going to, don't tell me, because save that for autumn. We're going to have a whole autumn program about preparing for winter and your plants that you're going to put out in autumn. That's just that makes me that's my favorite time of year. Yeah, so but I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you shared your knowledge, capability, Brown of Indiana. I'm so glad. And it's so fun talking to you. It's so fun to, people like put their opinions in the chat, and then, hearing what you have to say, because you've actually taught me a lot, especially about the patio roses. I'm going to change my whole mindset. And I think that's it. You get stuck in a mindset, and until you try something different, or someone gives you the advice that you need, you're like, I'm going to do that. And I know it's going to make a difference. And you've given everybody in the chat so much great advice. And I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad, y'all.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, for my first time, I mean, I feel so, well, I'm not quite as nervous now as when I first started, but yeah, I never thought that I would be on the other side of the phone or the camera and do that. But you're very easy to talk with and fun. And of course, everybody in our little community is fun and all that. So, it is a safe place.
It is. It is a safe place.
Oh, thank you, Daniel.
And we've all,
I'm sure your garden, John Robert, is so wonderful, because all the passion and love you put in it. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Monica. Yeah.
And you have just been a joy to have on here. I can't wait to get you back in the autumn. And I think you should do a video on your YouTube about your garden.
Oh, well, if I could have somebody to help hold the phone. But hold
the phone, honey.
Yeah, that's right. Because with my luck, it'll fall in the soil and get buried. Oh.
Absolutely, Amanda. We all need some advice, and you made some excellent points.
Oh,
And it's always great to have a face with a name. That's what Angela says.
right. Right. Thank you. Yes.
So
Thank you.
you've been great guest. Thanks everybody. Thank you for being so welcoming to John Robert. I knew you would, because he's one of us. He's family. So all right, guys, take care. You stay on, John Robert. Don't get off. You stay there. We'll talk backstage.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for coming and visiting with us, and John Robert and I. And we will see you. Next week we'll be on. Daniel, we're gonna be on your channel next week. Just look out for the socials. Double D will be back next week, possibly on my channel, possibly on Daniel's. Unclear, but we will definitely let you know.
Yeah.
So look out for the socials and we'll let you know. All right, guys, take care and have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.